I keep an eye on the UFO stuff. There's an element of it that's just fun, like Bigfoot is fun, things like that. The Loch Ness Monster, I hate when they scan the bottom and don't find it because I like to pretend there could be something down there. It's just fun. The thought of UFOs, not on the scary side or Independence Day, is just kind of fun, but hokey and isn't taken very seriously. And when people talk about it, not taken very seriously because of the joke we've made it, attack from Mars and whatnot. However, and it's hard to judge what you see in media, but with what the government's released, and it's hard to believe what you see because of editing and software and such. But what it looks like to me, an average person out there, it appears something's going on. And I think they may have answered their own question to what it is to some degree. And here's my hypothesis, then it's all going to you, is there's some small, tiny percentage of things that can't be explained that's happening in the skies. And they seem to be not of this material universe, in that the maneuvers that are being made, at the speed at which things are moving and changing directions and disappearing, frankly, is beyond any physical matter we're aware of. Then it goes into, well, it's some kind of extraterrestrial matter that we are not aware of. In my mind, they've answered their own question and saying it's not physical matter. Well, then what would it be? Conversely, it would be spiritual matter. And not disappearing, but possibly traveling back, not to alternate universes. You can't really travel from what I can tell because of our distances. It'd be seemingly impossible to get from place to place. But that there could be some dimensional thing happening with living energies or some kind of something with intelligence that has intelligence and isn't a material object like a disc. What's your thoughts on where I'm at?
Well, I think if you think about UFO phenomenon, it's kind of like you have two spheres. On one hand, you have plenty of people over the last 50 or 60 years who are engaging in what I would call UFO religion, UFO cults. And UFO religion and cults are steeped in the occult. In fact, some scholars would say that the idea of UFOs first came out of a seance. So it's very common for people who are in UFO religion or UFO cults to believe in the paranormal. Now, on the other hand, that's one sphere. That's kind of religious practice, if you will. Then you have the other sphere of the aerial phenomena, what people are seeing. The government has admitted, and they have images that they have detected. Now, the question is, could that be explained naturally? Well, I think most people think a good bit of what people see could be explained naturally, man-made phenomenon or misidentified phenomena. On the other hand, there is at least elements of the aerial phenomena that are very difficult to explain naturally. They don't operate like physical realities in the sky. They don't seem to comport well with the law of gravity and things of that nature. And so something strange appears to be happening. Again, I would propose it's probably a very small percentage of the larger aerial phenomena that people have been seeing for decades. But it does appear that if there is a reality behind the UFO phenomenon, and it is of a spiritual nature rather than a physical nature, certainly from a Christian point of view, from a Christian worldview point of view, it could be that people are encountering some kind of spiritual presence, some kind of paranormal, potentially a demonic phenomenon.
Right. I mean, speaking of a Christian point of view, I mean, the New Testament speaks of not wrestling with flesh and blood, but principalities, powers, rulers in high places in the heavenly realms. So what would you define? Is this where we would call a heavenly realm is possibly another word for dimension?
Well, you're exactly right. The Bible speaks of a realm of existence where there are beings that are not physical in nature, and they're not angelic beings that do the bidding of God. They appear to be fallen angelic beings that Christian theology would identify as being demons. And I think it's very clear biblically and in accord with historic Christianity that part of reality, another part of reality, an extended part of reality, if you will, involves some kind of spiritual realm where demonic beings operate. Now, from a biblical point of view, they seem to have the capacity to move in and out of the spiritual realm into our time-space world. But, again, in looking at this UFO phenomena, at least some of it, and it's not just Christians who are saying this. Some leading experts on UFOs, Jacques Vallée is a very good example. He's been studying UFOs for decades, not necessarily a Christian. He believes that this reality, at least in part, may be the paranormal.
What is a fifth dimension? Or where does this 10th dimension and all these dimensions come from, as far as like a scientific point of view comes from?
Yeah. Well, I'm not a physicist. My background is more in theology and philosophy, but I think it's very clear that scientists have talked about dimensions of reality that move beyond our time-space world, and it's difficult to think about that type of realm, that potential type of realm, in your normal kind of cause and effect scientific relationship. So from a naturalistic point of view, that is, a person who believes the physical universe is all there is. In philosophy, we would call that naturalism, a worldview where there is no supernatural. The universe is all there is. On the other hand, from a Christian point of view, while the world is real, the world of time and space and matter and energy is a real reality. There's something more. There's something that moves beyond time, space, matter, and energy. And that would be some kind of spiritual realm. Obviously, if you take the Bible seriously, if you take historic Christianity seriously, then you recognize that there was something that took place even before creation, and that is some kind of spiritual relationship between God and the angelic kingdom. And so from a Christian point of view, we certainly affirm the critical importance of the natural world, which appears to have had a beginning, which I think seems pretty consistent with what the book of Genesis indicates, that God created the heavens and the earth. Yet there is this potential spiritual realm, and it poses challenges, though. One of the things that I have observed in my study of UFOs is that it always seems kind of a strange phenomenon. It kind of defies logic and reason and rationality. It always seems rather inexplicable. It's never clear and straightforward. It seems, in my mind, to be deceptive. And I would argue, as a theologian, I think that the demonic is often expressed, at least in the Western part of the world, not so much in counterfeit miracles, but in deception. Mm-hmm. And even the government discussion of it, they appear to be perplexed as to what the ultimate explanation is. And again, I think other scholars who have approach this topic and are not necessarily carrying any kind of religious conviction, and so they can't be dismissed as having a religious bias. They see there seems to be a parallel between UFO phenomena and paranormal phenomena.
Yeah. Yeah. And if somebody steps up with any kind of logical explanation, the masses listen. Ancient Aliens has its own Comic-Con going on. They're rock stars. And to me, Ancient Aliens is something I love and I show that I hate, because I learned so much about archaeology and things, history in the world. But to me, I want to see what your thought is, that it's easily explained by what you're saying in the worldview and the explanation that if there, since before the creation of the world, is this spiritual realm that can come in and out and be seen and not seen by physical people and matter, that they know mathematics and they can easily influence architecture and the building of pyramids in one part of the world, when that world couldn't communicate to the other part of the world because they're not limited by that. Doesn't necessarily mean that a spaceship got up and traveled around the world as star people and trained them.
Yeah, when I was a teenager, I read von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods.
Right.
And I'm an avid watcher of the History Channel, and I used to like it because they would show a lot of footage of World War II, but it seems that Ancient Aliens has kind of taken over, and that's apparently what a lot of people like seeing.
Yeah.
I think the idea of an ancient astronaut appearing and, aiding human beings in the development of technology through an extraterrestrial source, I don't find that convincing. I think the ancient peoples were probably a lot brighter than they often are given credit for. But nevertheless, if you think back to history, people have seen strange things in history. In World War II, for example, there were the Foo Fighters, where not just Allied pilots, but Axis pilots saw images. They were being tracked by some kind of reality. Even in the 19th century, you have what appear to be at that time dirigibles or blimps. So people have seen strange things in the sky. Now, again, I come back to, though, a point that I think is important. When you look at broadly the question of ufology, there is the kind of religious practices and UFO religion. And I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that religion is rooted in the occult. It is rooted in spiritism. It's rooted in seances. I think that's a pretty much accepted idea. On the other hand, the aerial phenomena, that has multiple possible explanations. But at least some of, maybe it's just a small percentage of what people see in the sky or recorded in the sky, acts in such a way that it doesn't comport well with natural science. And there, I think you might be able to make a connection that, is it possible? Let's delve the psychological angle for a moment. Is it possible people who are predisposed to believing in the paranormal are largely the people who have UFO encounters? Yeah. Now, again, it would be hard to determine that, but I think it has some explanatory power.
Yeah, and along that, it seems the majority of the little green men in the abductions and that kind of, which I think you're putting under the kind of religious occult part, is coming from going under hypnosis and so-called getting memories recalled that they may have not even known until that point.
Yeah, it's a strange phenomenon. It is an interesting one. It is difficult to come to any kind of definitive conclusions about them. But I don't. I think the recent discussion by the military and what was communicated to the American government, I think the military has probably never been so candid before. I think in history, if you go back to Project Grudge, Project Blue Book, all of these, at the time of the Cold War, people were seeing or reporting things in the sky, and the American government was very much interested because there was, is this the Soviet Union? And even today, the government admitted they've raised questions. Could this be a technology set forth by Russia or by China, or could it be American? And the government's not revealing. But I think that the American government was pretty candid in saying there appears to be a reality here, and we don't really know what it is.
Yeah, we tend to separate whether it's UFOs or spirits away from faith, but it shocks people if they say, well, I don't believe in, spirits or anything like that could be. And I think, well, what do you think angels are? What do you think God is? I mean, technically,
right?
They're aliens. Christians follow a person that said, I'm not from this world. I came from another one. I'm going back to another one. So if you think in those terms, it has nothing to do with the whole Loch Ness Monster side or flying discs with little green men and lasers. It has to do with the reality of, like you've been saying, something beyond that is just beyond our physical selves, that maybe we are spirit people, and if within our bodies. And if that's the case, then things like the Bible could be right, or in some element, what even those ancient people thought was right. They were just way more spiritually open than we are in Western modern society to be interacting at some level with a spirit world, dark or not.
Yeah. I think that's right. I think, as a Christian theologian, as a Christian philosopher, I would say that Christians believe that reality is deeper and more complex than merely the physical material universe. Christians very much affirm that we live in a real physical world of matter and energy, time and space, that it had a beginning, which I think is, again, pretty consistent with Big Bang cosmology. But Christians believe that there is a deeper element to it. It is reality also exists in a spiritual form. And from a Christian point of view, God is an infinite, eternal, tripersonal spirit, after all. Right. Christians believe humans have souls, that is the non-physical or the spiritual part of us. And we believe that after death, there'll be a realm that will involve the spiritual. And so, yeah, I think it's correct to say that those, and not just Christianity, Jews and Muslims and Eastern mystical religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, believe that there is some reality that extends beyond the physical.
Right. And this podcast is specifically geared towards divine encounters. In your life, is there a specific moment or a time or a couple times where you could say for sure this is past just my intellect and that this faith makes sense to me logically, intellectually, but something spiritual has happened to me or I've been a part of?
Yeah, when I was, I grew up, I was baptized as a 4-year-old in the Catholic religion. My family kind of fell away from our Catholic roots. And so when I was a teenager, I went through a real period of searching I felt like there was something missing in my life. I thought, well, maybe if I become a rich and famous ball player, maybe that will fulfill it. Or if I meet the right woman, maybe that will fulfill it. But I was definitely searching. I felt kind of a restlessness in my life. And lo and behold, our family experienced what I would call a family catastrophe. My older brother, who suffered from psychological challenges in his life, he became part of the countercultural movement and unfortunately became addicted to drugs. And after a period of incarceration, my brother took his life. So he was about 27 at the time. I was 19. And that really threw me. It really put me in an existential crisis. I felt guilt that I couldn't help my brother. And I felt like, wow, I really don't know what life is all about. And so I began reading. I liked the Beatles, so I was listening to George Harrison chant Hare Krishna. I was looking at the different religions of the world. And one night I had a dream, and it was like no other dream I'd ever had in my life. I dreamed that I was in a cave. And as I looked around in the cave, I noticed that I was on my knees and I was dressed in what appeared to me to be a robe. And so it was an odd phenomenon. So I began looking carefully, and I thought I saw what looked like a window in the cave. And as I looked through that opening, a man's face appeared. And initially, it struck me as very unappealing. The man seemed ugly. But as I concentrated a little bit more, it looked like the man had bruises. It looked as if he had been beaten and bloody. Later, many years after I had this dream, I saw an image of Jesus in the Orthodox tradition. They have icons, paintings of Jesus and Mary and the saints. The man's face looked very similar. Now, in that dream, then this man spoke. And when he spoke, it was like thunder. And it just kind of knocked me on my face. And when I woke up, I wasn't sure I was awake or still dreaming. So I jumped out of bed. I was all sweaty. And I thought, my gosh, what did I just experience? Now, again, dreams are hard to define. Dreams are hard to confirm. Is it just psychological pictures and images in my mind? Or did I have some kind of encounter? What I can tell you is that dream in a very important part led me to go out and do something I'd never done before. I bought a Bible. I bought Good News for Modern Man, which was a paraphrase of the Bible, and I began reading it every single day. I discovered later, as a Catholic, I could go to church every day. They have Mass 7 a.m., so I started going to church, and I went to Mass every day for 2 years. I began praying. Later, my sister, who had become a Christian, she gave me a copy of C.S. Lewis's book, Mere Christianity. And all of that changed my life. In fact, my life changed so much in a spiritual and Christian direction that I had friends that I had grown up with, I'd gone to school with, played on the baseball team together. A couple of them said, Ken, your life is like night and day. And even my parents, they couldn't believe the change in me. Now, I believe that, Christianity is true. Jesus is indeed the Son of God. But I can tell you that dream, and again, would I be able to prove it was veridical? That is, that it was actually a supernatural invention, or whether it was just a subjective psychological state? I don't think I could prove it. But what I can say is that dream never left me. It always had, it put an imprint on me. And it led to things later that really did transform my life. And so, do I believe I had a divine encounter? I think so. And by the way, I've met other people, and sometimes I've even met Muslims who had dreams and saw the image of Christ and became Christians. So would I present this argument to an atheist to try to prove my faith? Probably not. But from my own vantage point, it's something that has never left me.
Outlaw.